Darkness blanketed the barren expanse of Varkanis IV, a forgotten world of jagged rock and merciless winds. Beneath a sky painted in muted reds and blackened clouds, a lone figure moved through the ruins of what had once been a mining outpost. His presence a whisper against the desolation. Elias Voss had known war, lived it, bled for it, survived it. He had fought battles that no man should have walked away from, and yet here he was, one of the last remnants of the immortal legion, a war machine sculpted from flesh, steel, and a lifetime of engineered violence. The galaxy had left him behind. Suits in high offices had declared his kind obsolete. The war had ended. His purpose had faded. And so he had drifted, until he found himself here, on a planet so lifeless it mirrored what remained of his soul. The alert came first as a flicker in the heads-up display embedded in his retinal interface. Then a pulse, a disturbance in the planet's upper orbit. He glanced up. A shadow moved against the dying sky, vast and foreboding. They had come for him. The Zelnar Dominion was not a species prone to half-measures. They were warriors of blood and fire, conquerors of a dozen star systems, their fleets carving paths of devastation across the void. Their high command had been swift in their judgment. A single human had annihilated one of their battalions. An insult beyond reason, an offense that demanded not retaliation but eradication. And so they sent an army, not a scouting force, not a squad, an entire planetary invasion fleet, thousands of soldiers, mechs the size of buildings, warships that blotted out the stars. For one man, the arrogance of it, the sheer absurdity. They believed themselves unstoppable, that they could drown him in numbers, crush him with overwhelming might. They had made a mistake. Voss did not run. He stood in the open, watching the storm of drop pods scream through the atmosphere, their descent marked by pillars of fire. The ground trembled as the first of them struck the surface, doors hissing open to release hulking, armored figures into the wasteland. They advanced in formation, disciplined, methodical, weapons charged and scanning for their target. The Zelnar were not fools. They had studied human warfare, seen how fragile the species was in direct combat. The Immortal Legion, however, was something else entirely, something they did not understand. A whisper through his neural link. Systems flared to life, combat HUD activating in a cascade of data. Targeting vectors painted the battlefield in sharp, lethal clarity. He flexed his fingers, feeling the surge of artificial muscle beneath his skin. A single command pulsed through. His mind engaged. They never saw the first strike. One moment they were advancing. The next, the lead soldier collapsed, his armor breached, his lifeblood spilling into the dirt. Then another, and another. Voss moved like a spectre, weaving through the storm of gunfire with inhuman precision. His plasma blade ignited, carving through flesh and steel alike. Their armor was thick, designed to withstand human weapons, but Voss was not wielding human weapons. He was the weapon. A detonated charge sent a squad flying. Their bodies twisted metal before they even hit the ground. He took their rifles before they did, recalibrating them in milliseconds, turning their own firepower against them. Screams filled the air. They were used to being the ones who instilled terror. Now they felt it. Within minutes, the first wave lay in ruins. Silence stretched across the battlefield, broken only by the crackle of flames and the ragged breathing of the dying. Voss stood amidst the carnage, his body painted in blood and scorched earth. He lifted his gaze to the sky, to the hundreds more descending. It wasn't enough. The Dominion's arrogance would not let them retreat. They had sent an army. They would throw it all at him until he was broken, burned, or buried beneath their numbers. They were mistaken. Voss took a breath, recalibrated his systems. His voice, cold and unwavering, echoed through their comms. Not a taunt, not a threat, but a simple truth. You should have sent more. The sky was on fire. Hundreds of Zelnar dropships screamed through the atmosphere, their hulls glowing from atmospheric entry. Steel titans carved for war, each carrying squads of elite warriors trained in planetary conquest. This was no ordinary invasion. This was annihilation, yet Elias Voss stood alone. Beneath the burning heavens, he watched from atop a shattered ridge, his enhanced eyes tracing the unfolding onslaught. They had deployed mech walkers, their towering forms thudding across the barren terrain, cannons locking onto his position. Gunships hovered above, scanning for movement, their operators no doubt wondering, how is he still alive? They had come, expecting a fugitive, a relic of a bygone war. Not this. A sudden pulse of energy rippled through his neural link. Threat analysis activated, their artillery adjusted for bombardment. Their infantry spread out, forming a kill zone around his location. No gaps, no blind spots. They were learning. It wouldn't matter. Voss rolled his shoulders, feeling the surge of biomechanical power coil through his limbs. His internal combat. Sweet projected millisecond calculations, every possible trajectory of movement mapped in luminous red lines across his HUD. The first blast struck, a section of the ridge erupted into a maelstrom of fire and shrapnel, vaporizing anything ordinary. But Voss was not ordinary. He launched forward, escaping the kill zone in a blur of speed. The second blast followed, vaporizing the space where he had been a heartbeat before. Too slow. The Zelnar gunners panicked. Their targeting algorithms struggled to predict something that shouldn't exist. A single, unarmored combatant, outmaneuvering. War machines. Then he was among them. A knee to the helmet, shattered bone and plating alike. A rifle ripped from its wielder became a battering ram, slamming into an officer's throat. The next warrior raised his plasma repeater, but Voss had already closed the gap. A flash of silver. The plasma blade ignited from his gauntlet, slicing effortlessly through flesh, through armor, through everything. Screams erupted, warriors trained. To fear nothing felt an alien sensation creeping into their bones. Fear. Above, the Dominion Command Center monitored the battle from orbit. High General Zarzok watched the incoming data feed, his jaws tightening. This was impossible. One human should not have been able to hold against a battalion. Yet the screen displayed hundreds of red markers, casualties, and only one blue marker remained unbroken. Him. A flicker of movement caught the general's gaze. A disruptor cannon, auto-targeting, charged up behind the human. Point-blank range. And can't dodge this, Zarzok thought. The cannon fired. But before the blast could reach him, the impossible happened. The human caught it. A hand, flesh-wrapped steel, moved like lightning, intercepting the plasma charge mid-air. The energy dispersed across his palm, crackling, contained. Then he turned and threw it back. The explosion swallowed the entire gunship. The Zelnar forces crumbled. They had believed in strength through numbers. That had been their greatest weakness. Voss did not fight like an army. He fought like a storm. Drones fell from the sky, hijacked by his neural cybernetics. The mech walkers, once towering monuments of destruction, collapsed under the weight of tactical sabotage. The battlefield became a graveyard. A new message pulsed across their encrypted channels. Untraceable, unstoppable. A transmission from him. You came to kill me. Now your empire will burn. The Zelnar High Command panicked. Across their empire, alarms blared. The unthinkable had happened. Not only had they failed, but their greatest army was being dismantled by one man, Admiral Zernak Kal. Slammed his fist against the control panel. Deploy the Champion King. The command room fell silent. Deploying Zurek Voss, the Dominion's most feared warlord, was akin to summoning a god of war. The order was given. The planetary reinforcement gates opened, and the battle was about to change. Forever, a storm was coming, not of wind or rain, but of violence and fire. The Zelnar, once an empire of absolute certainty, now faced an enemy they could not comprehend. One human had dismantled their finest warriors, shattered their pride, and broadcast his defiance across their encrypted channels. And yet, he was still standing. The warships above Varkanis IV burned fuel at full thrust, their reinforcements descending. Heavy-class battle mechs, massive quadrupedal machines built for planetary extermination, impacted the ground like thunderclaps. Their plasma siege cannons hummed with energy, each capable of scorching entire city blocks to ash. Yet, in the midst of their formation, one figure stood, unmoving, Elias Voss, wounded, bloodied, unbroken. Above him, the sky split apart. Zurak Voss had arrived. The champion king of the Zelnar Dominion was more than a warrior. He was a living legend, undefeated across 100 battlefields, his armor forged from the bones of his enemies, his blade an heirloom of conquest. His descent shook the planet, and then silence. The surviving Zelnar soldiers dared not move. They had witnessed death incarnate, a human who fought like an army of ghosts. But now their king had come, standing nearly 8 feet tall, wrapped in ceremonial battle plating. Zurak Voss radiated the aura of a predator who had never known fear. His golden war helm reflected the burning sky, his eyes, deep reptilian slits, locked onto Voss with something between curiosity and hunger, a challenge unspoken. Voss flexed his fingers, rolling his shoulders. No words, only war. The first clash sent shockwaves through the battlefield. Zurak Voss moved fast, far faster than something of his size had any right to. His blade met Voss's plasma gauntlet, sending out a shower of sparks that lit the darkness like dying stars. A second strike. Voss sidestepped, countered, his fist striking plated armor. The impact rippled through the air, sending the massive warlord skidding backwards. Zurak grinned. The warriors of the Zelnar watched in awe. Never had they seen their king challenged so swiftly. Never had they seen him enjoy it. Blow after blow, strike after strike, the battle became poetry, a deadly dance between two predators locked in a battle for dominance. Zurak Voss fought like a storm given. Form, his strikes monstrous, precise. Voss countered like a ghost, fluid, adapting, each move calculated down to the nanosecond. But the king of the Dominion was not merely a warrior, he was a tactician. A pulse wave erupted from his armor, a disruption field, a nullifier of cybernetic enhancements. Voss's HUD flickered, his neural systems momentarily lagging, an opening. Zurak struck. The impact sent Voss crashing through the ruins, stone and steel collapsing over him. For the first time since the invasion, the Zelnar cheered. But it was not over. A voice crackled through their comms, low, edged with something almost amused. Not bad. The rubble exploded outward. Voss emerged, armor scarred but unshaken. A gash along his brow bled freely, but his stance remained unrelenting. He raised a hand. The Dominion's stolen war drones responded. Above them the sky turned. Black with machines? You're strong, Voss admitted, rolling his neck, but you should have killed me when you had the chance. And then the true war began. The Zelnar reinforcements surged forward, but the battlefield was no longer theirs. Their own war drones turned against them, hacked in real time through Voss's neural interface. Automated turrets recalibrated, firing on their former masters. Voss moved like lightning. He didn't just fight, he controlled the war itself. A mech walker stomped toward him. He vaulted up its leg, ripped open the cockpit hatch, and threw the pilot out. A warship descended to reinforce Zurak. Voss hijacked its defense grid mid-air and turned its cannons inward. In the chaos, Zurak Voss laughed. For the first time in years, he was fighting for his life, far from the front lines. A single Zelnar officer, Reva, watched from cover. She had fought for the Dominion her entire life, believed in its strength, its supremacy, but as she gazed upon the battlefield, everything she knew crumbled. A human, one human, an empire was, losing to one man. For the first time, she whispered a truth she never thought possible. We were wrong, The battle raged on. Voss and Zurich clashed once more, but something had changed. The Zelnar forces were breaking. Their fear outweighed their loyalty. Zurich knew the battle was over, not in combat, but in the minds of his soldiers. Voss swung. Zurich blocked. The warlord locked eyes with him, and then he did something no one expected. He knelt. Silence fell over the battlefield. The champion king had surrendered. Across the Dominion fleet, warships halted their bombardments. A single command spread through their ranks like wildfire. Stand down! For the first time in their history, the Zelnar had lost a war. To one man, Voss stood over the fallen king, his plasma blade humming. Zurich did not beg, did not cower. He only watched. A warlord who had never known defeat had been humbled. Voss tilted his head. Your empire thinks strength is measured in numbers. In conquest, he let the blade deactivate. Now you know better. He turned to Reva, tossed her a data drive. Take this message to your homeworld. Her hands trembled as she caught it. What message? Voss smirked. Tell them I'm coming. The war should have ended. The champion king had fallen, the greatest army of the Dominion brought to ruin by one human. But pride is a poison. And the Zelnar High Command was not yet ready to accept the taste of humiliation. From the bridge of the dreadnought Osna Kai, the ruling elite of the Dominion watched in horrified silence as battlefield reports streamed in. Casualty counts soared beyond reason. Entire legions wiped from existence, their greatest warlord kneeling in surrender. The high generals had two options: admit defeat or erase the evidence. They chose the latter. A simple order was issued, broadcasted to every surviving warship in orbit: burn Varkanis IV. From above, the fleet adjusted positions, recalibrating their orbital cannons. These were not precision strikes, not tactical bombardments. This was planetary extermination, a cleansing. Flames descended from the heavens, plasma bolts the size of city blocks raining toward the surface, aimed to consume everything: Voss, Zurich, their own fallen army, the entire battlefield. The Zelnar would bury this shame under the weight of annihilation. Voss watched the first streak of fire fall, its glow reflecting against the cold steel of his visor. They had no honor. They had no victory. Only fear. That was their mistake. Voss exhaled. No, more. The nearest warship was still grounded. Its pilot panicked, attempting an emergency launch. Voss moved. 1 second, he was on the battlefield. The next, on board. The pilot barely had time to react before Voss tore him from the cockpit and sent him crashing into the bulkhead. With a neural interface pulse, the ship's controls bent to his will. Weapons systems, online, targeting matrix, acquired, fleet command overrides, compromised. He hijacked the ship's comms, his voice, cold, unyielding, broadcasted. To the entire Dominion fleet, you should have walked away. The Dominion commanders barely had time to process before one of their own warships turned against them. Turrets spun toward the heavens. Missile bays locked onto orbiting dreadnoughts. Voss fired. Explosions ripped through the sky. Massive Dominion. Battleships crumbling under the sudden betrayal. He wasn't just fighting back. He was taking control. One by one, his hacked subroutines spread, overriding Zelnar firewalls. The Dominion fleet descended into chaos, their own ships firing upon each other, crews deserting, abandoning their posts. The burning of Varkanis IV had turned into the burning of their own fleet. On the ground, Zurich Voss stared in awe. Never, in his entire life, had he seen an empire break from within. Never had he seen a war lost so utterly, and yet one man had done it. But he saw something else too. The Dominion would never forgive this. They would hunt Voss until the end of time, unless they feared him more than they hated him. Zurich grabbed the nearest Dominion soldier, bloodied and broken. Listen to me. His voice was not a command. It was an order written in blood and war. Tell the High Command what happened here." He turned toward Voss's hijacked warship, still unleashing death upon the Dominion fleet. "Tell them what one human did." The soldier shook, gasping for breath. "They won't believe me." Zurek bared his fangs in a grim smile. "They will. The fleet was in ruins. The survivors fled, their warships vanishing into the void, carrying stories that would spread across the stars. But Voss was not finished. The hijacked warship streaked toward the Zelnar Homeworld, its thrusters burning at maximum capacity. One last target, the Dominion's capital, the seat of their empire. They had sent an army for one man. Now he would show them what one man could do. As the warship pierced the Homeworld's defenses, the Zelnar government scrambled in terror. They broadcasted pleas, offers, desperate attempts at diplomacy. Voss ignored them. Instead, he sent one final message across every Dominion channel, every Homeworld screen, every broadcast hub. A simple warning: do not come for us again. And then he disappeared. The fires of war had burned out, but the embers of legend remained. Across the galactic void, whispers spread like a wildfire no empire could control. The Zelnar Dominion, once feared, once unstoppable, was now broken, humiliated, not by an armada, not by a coalition of civilizations, by one man. On the barren fields of Varkanis IV, silence reigned. The once mighty Dominion army lay in ruins, their war machines reduced to smoldering wreckage, their soldiers either dead or too afraid to fight. Voss stood alone, surveying the battlefield, the remnants of what he had done. Above him, the last few Dominion warships fled, their commanders no longer warriors, but messengers of fear. He let them go, let them tell the story. Within hours, rumors spread beyond Dominion space. A single human, exiled and forgotten, had brought a galactic power to its knees. Across war councils, in the halls of other alien empires, governments watched, debated, feared. Who was Elias Voss? Was he an anomaly? Or was he proof that humans were more dangerous than anyone had ever believed? Some saw the truth. The Dominion had believed in strength through conquest. They had sent an army to destroy a single man, and in doing so, they had created something far worse. A legend. The champion king remained, battered and scarred, watching. As his people fell apart, he had fought 100 wars. He had never lost until now, but this was no loss. This was enlightenment. He turned to Riva, the Zelnar officer who had witnessed the battle. "Go home," he told her. "Tell them what happened here," she hesitated. "They'll want revenge," Zurek nodded. "Let them try." For the first time, a Zelnar warrior understood what true strength meant, and it was not domination. By the time Dominion intelligence searched for him, he was gone. No trace, no signals. Not even a body. Some said he had returned to Earth. Others claimed he had fled to deep space, waiting, watching. The Dominion never sent another fleet. Not because they feared war, because they feared what might happen if they lost again. From the shadows, other powers watched. The United Terran Council, Earth's rulers, received the reports. What Voss had done changed everything. No longer were humans seen as weak. Now they were something far more dangerous, unpredictable, unstoppable, unbreakable. And, in the void, where empires had once dismissed humanity, now they spoke a different name in hushed, fearful tones. The Immortal One. Some wars are won on the battlefield. Others are won in the minds of those who remain. Voss had left a scar on the stars, a warning. You sent an army for one human. Next time send diplomats. And with that he was gone. A myth, a ghost, a reminder that some battles should never be fought. The legend of Elias Voss did not fade. It spread. Across star systems, whispered in shadowed corners, muttered in war councils, written in the annals of history as both a warning and a prophecy. The human who broke an empire, the immortal one, the man who shouldn't exist. No one knew where he had gone. Some believed he had returned to Earth, living in secrecy, watching. Others swore he had vanished into deep space, waiting for the next empire foolish enough to challenge him. The truth, he was still out there. The Dominion homeworld burned, not from war but from fear. The ruling high generals, once so sure of their superiority, trembled in their war chambers. They had lost a war they never imagined could be lost, not to an army, not to an invasion, to one man. And worse, the galaxy knew it. For the first time in their history, the Zelnar Dominion did the unthinkable. They halted expansion. They sealed their borders. They feared retaliation, not from Earth, from him, but not all. Feared him. Some wanted him, in the shadowed corners of the universe. Whispers reached the ears of the warlords of Zorath, the cyber lords of Orion, the AI Imperium beyond the fringe. They wanted to find Voss, some to destroy him, some to recruit him, and some to become him. Because if one human could topple an empire, what else could he do? What else was he capable of? Then from the depths of deep space, a signal pulsed across the void, encrypted, ancient, not of human origin. A distress call, a warning, a voice, mechanical and vast, speaking in a language older than time itself. He has awakened. The war that should never be fought is coming. You must find him, or you will all burn. The transmission ended, coordinates followed, a place far beyond known space. A place where no empire dared venture. A place where something older than humanity, older than the Zelnar, waited. And far away in the silent dark, Elias Voss opened his eyes. He had thought his war was over. He was wrong. You were feared for what you could destroy. But now we need you for what you can save.